Welcome back to 8158 Podcast Stories of Sacrifice. Today, we are having a second conversation with Emilee Landreth, a former 911 dispatcher turned therapist. This time, we dive even deeper into the emotional weight of serving behind the headset and the journey to becoming a healer for those still in the fight. This episode explores the aftershocks of unprocessed trauma, why peer support matters, and how even the smallest ripple of change can make a lasting impact. Because healing doesn't happen all at once, it happens in conversation, in community, and in courage. Let's get into it.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. We have a return guest. Her name is Emilee. She is a former first responder. She's been on our podcast before. Now she is a therapist, and we will dive into what her therapy sessions are like. Welcome, Emilee.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me back.
Not a problem. Not a problem. It's good to have you back on here so we can talk about a little bit more about your sessions and what they're kind of like and what people expect from you. So tell us a little bit about your background in both dispatch and mental health, real quick, just so the people who haven't heard before will kind of get an understanding of what's going on here.
Okay. So I'll give the fast version here. When I was 18, I started in dispatch because I needed a big girl job. And over the past almost 20 years, I've been kind of in and out of the first responder world for total years of service for about 5 years in dispatch. Took a really bad call a couple years ago now and decided that mental health was not being addressed both in the community that I live in and for first responders, and decided I would go help try to change it.
Right. And if I recall, one of your calls was very traumatic, and you had tried to reach out, and they had said that your end of it wasn't as traumatic as they believed it would have been. Can you explain a little bit about that and what led
Yeah,
you into therapy?
sure. So I took a call where someone called with a plan to hurt themselves and a plan to no longer be with us on this earth. I, of course, tried to talk them out of it and do everything I could. At the end of the day, I was not successful. So I reached out and asked for help, asked to go to the debriefing, to be able to kind of talk it through with my peers, and instead was given a peer support person's phone number. So I was told that what I experienced wasn't of the level of trauma that I needed to participate in the debriefing. So I got that peer support person's phone number, but they had experienced an issue where someone had used a gun, but not the same issue where someone was trying to harm themselves with a gun. So um, they were helpful. I don't want to negate the peer support side of that. The peer support was helpful, but I needed more than that and was not afforded those opportunities.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We've had other dispatch that have been involved in the very specific calls that you had described, and it obviously had affected them tremendously. So I'm sorry that they disregarded what you had gone through, and it's just unfortunate. And they should have allowed you to be involved.
It would have been nice. Unfortunately, a lot of first responder agencies are still good old boy club. And I can get on a whole soapbox about that, but I'll save that for another time. So if you're not part of that good old boys group, then you don't get the same treatment as other people.
Sad that it's still like that, and hopefully in the future things will change. And I know that we're working on trying to make that change by, letting people's voices like yours out there so that, people can hear, and hopefully it'll affect change.
That's the goal. Across the board, I think I've seen a lot of movement, and I hope the movement really takes off.
Absolutely. You've said therapy with first responders isn't your typical vent session. What makes it different from traditional talk therapy?
Um, so, with the exception of dispatchers, most first responders um, kind of know what they're going into when they go, or have a general idea when they go on these calls. So part of the reason I wanted to even come on and do this was because I think that having this kind of enlightenment will help reduce the stigma of what's going on. Um, First responders are trained from day one in training to fix it. So they come into therapy expecting resolutions. Like they want to walk out day one with resolutions. I say it's not a normal vent session because it's not everyday people problems that we're talking about. Um, First responders are their own community. They are their own, they're their own group of people who have their own problems um, that the general public doesn't understand. So a lot of times the general public seeks therapy and they look for what I call a vent session. So they look for your talk therapy with a little bit of guidance. First responders come to therapy and they look for tools. So when I do therapy sessions with first responders, instead of letting them just get it all out, we fill their emotional toolbox with things that they can use um, to regulate themselves when they're not in therapy, when they're on these triggering calls or having these bad days. So it's more of a fill the toolbox type thing.
Yeah, because first responders are trained to fix things now, not 6 months
Mm-hmm.
later.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So it's your job to help them basically change the mindset and shape how they approach certain things.
It
It
is.
is.
So
So
what I
what
do is I go in with the the mindset of a first responder. The one thing that I always say makes me unique is that I understand that level, so I know where their minds are at generally, and kind of what's going through it, and I'm able to take that and use metaphors and analogies that apply directly to what they do. One that I started using recently that I really love is um, just like when you get a fire truck, it doesn't have a hose on it. When you are born, you are not born with anxiety as part of you or depression as part of you. So it has to be, those things have to be added over time. And that really helps drive that point home. Um, but using those, the way that first responders think is the way to get through to them.
Right. And you described the first session as the bureaucratic BS session. What usually happens during the first session with you?
Yeah, so the bureaucratic bullshit session, absolutely.
Yes.
Um, that is the reason that I call it that is because that's like the paperwork session. That's the boring session where I'm asking pages of yes, no questions. Um, Part of it is insurance requirement. Part of it is like diagnostic, trying to figure out what conditions the person I'm with is dealing with. So I use an assessment called the Mini, and it is a condensed assessment, but looks at the top like 17 mental health conditions that affect most of the population: depression, anxiety, PTSD, different types of anxiety, panic disorders, mania, things like that. So we go through and say, have you experienced this or are you experiencing that? And from those answers, it kind of helps me know which way to gear sessions. I also have to ask a lot of kind of probing personal questions like who do you live with? What was your family like growing up? All of that stuff. Because, like I said, insurance requires me to write this really long paper. That paper is called a biopsychosocial, just to be geeky, but they require me to write this really long paper with the history of the person and the problem and kind of like my idea of how I'm going to treat it. So the first session is purely, figure out what's going on and how can we make the insurance company happy so that they will pay for it and the first responders don't have to.
Yeah, that's good. Especially when they've gone through a traumatic event, that's the last thing they need to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Is having to pay for therapy sessions. Um, you start your sessions by sharing your story and giving clients permission to cuss and vent, even scream if they need to. Why is that important for your process?
So sharing my story, lets them know that I've been there. I've been through it too. And one of the really important things is that it makes me human. I'm not just some therapy bot. I'm not Chat GPT giving you ideas and whatnot. I'm someone who has lived experience. I've lived the responder life. I've lived the I'm a parent life. All of the different aspects so that it's more of a, hey, she gets me, she's not here just um, trying to collect a paycheck, she's actually going to help me. um, Clients often feel like they need to uh, censor themselves in therapy. The thing that I say is, you are not going to offend me. There's nothing that you can say or do that's going to upset or offend me. I have worked in Durham. And I tell them, I've worked in Durham. I've had people say stuff to me off the wall, kind of, crazy. They've been hallucinating that they were strapped to trees. They've thought that fire trucks were spraying Agent Orange into their house when they were really putting out a house fire. They've thought that dropping a cookie sheet on their toe was reason to go to the hospital by ambulance. You can't say anything that I've not heard. The permission to cuss, fuss, vent, yell, scream, whatever you need to do is so that they don't feel restricted in that environment. My office is not very large. So for my in-person clients, we're already in a small space. I don't want them to feel more restricted about what they can or can't do in that space. I also say this is your therapy. Whatever it needs to look like is what we can make it look like. This is for your benefit, not for mine. I'm here to help you. So it gives them that freedom and ability to not feel so put in a box.
Makes a lot of sense. That's pretty awesome. A lot of your first responders come in guarded. They're used to compartmentalizing. So how do you help them lower those walls early on?
So the first thing, going back to the last question, I share my story. I give them permission to be out of the box. I explain to them like the reason that people come to therapy is because we have a diagram, which, I'll save you the trouble of that, but it's 4 circles and they're interconnected. And people always come in the lower 2 circles, which are either pain or suffering. So pain is physical, emotional, psychological. Your left knee could hurt. And that could be what we talk about the whole therapy session is how you hurt your left knee. But it could be that, you dealt with this call and you knew this frequent flyer and now they're, seriously injured or whatever, and you need to process that. If they're not in pain, they're in suffering. And what suffering is that they're getting the necessities out of life. You got a roof over your head, you got a job, you got a car, money coming in, food on the table, but you're not getting what you need to live the life that you dreamed of. And so when they come in and I start explaining that, the light bulbs go off pretty quick. And I tell them my goal is to get you, the top 2 circles are mindfulness and healing. So my goal is to teach you mindfulness and give you tools, and that will help push you into healing. And I'm also very open with them. You're going to go backwards. You're going to have triggers that push you back down into pain and suffering, but now you know how to get out of it. You're also going to have things that come up that are going to cause you problems, but you've got my cell phone number, and if it's a crisis, I'll make time for you. Those are the ways I pull those walls down. And it's not always a fast process. Sometimes I've got people that it takes 2 months before they really trust me to start giving me enough to work with. But consistency is key. And it's something that, I will always work as hard as my first responders. I've got a couple who will vouch for me on this. I tell them, I'll work as hard as you do. You come into therapy, you bust your butt, I'm going to bust my butt with you. You come into therapy and you're surface level and you don't try, then, we'll sit and do what you want to do for therapy, but until you're ready to try, you're not going to get any benefit. And the honesty and level of openness that I throw at them from the minute they walk through my door is really something that helps build the rapport and knock the walls down.
So is that how you make it clear to them to share as much or as little as they want that helps you to give them space and giving enough of what you need to help them?
Yep. So the first day, I'm like, tell me what brought you here. Why are you here? You can tell me as little or as much as you want. I do have to have a certain amount of information, so I may ask additional like probing questions and things like that. But if it's a specific event, we're going to get to that in therapy. I know that we're going to get to that event. They know that we're going to get to that event because that's the reason that they're there. So if they don't want to tell me about that event today, it's okay. I'm not in a rush for that because I want them to feel that this is a safe place. I am very careful to be sure that I ask open-ended questions where they can feel free to kind of elaborate or not. But I only dig if I have to dig until they're ready to give me that information.
Yeah, it seems pretty honorable. Sometimes with people that's hard for them to kind of come out of their shell yet, you still have to get it out of them
Mm-hmm. You
somehow.
do.
You got to do
Somehow, some way, it's all going to come to light one way or the other. But I try to give people the autonomy to choose the speed that they do it at,
right.
the best that I can, considering that I do have a level of bureaucratic BS that I have to adhere to and satisfy as well.
Exactly. Can you walk us through what comes after your introductions, those yes or no questions, and they're designed to reveal what is that like?
So those yes or no questions, those are the mini assessment. So they are a group of questions designed to reveal certain diagnoses. I go through it very detailed. So when I start asking those questions, I'll say, okay, this page or this group of questions is about depression. This group of questions is about anxiety or suicidality or whatever the page is, because again, it's very important to maintain that transparency, but also to let them know what they're going into, because that's how they're trained, is to not go into something that they don't know a lot about. The yes no questions for depression range from, in the past 2 weeks, have you been more depressed or less interested in the things that you're normally interested in? And it goes all the way down to, like, in the past month, have you been suicidal? We go over substance use and alcohol questions. And to be completely honest, some of these questions are worded really weird. And I will look at the person and say, look, this question sounds really stupid. It really sounds dumb. But if you can just work with me through this question, we'll figure it out. So my least favorite question in the whole thing, other than the suicide questions, is related to alcohol. And the alcohol use questionnaire, the first question is, have you had 3 or more drinks within 3 hours on 3 occasions in the past 12 months? So I'm asking them to think about all the times they've used alcohol. Have they finished 3 or more drinks in less than 3 hours? And have they done that on 3 different occasions? So they really have to think about that. They can't, most of the time, they're not going to know yes or no until they sit down and process. And so there are some of those questions we have to process. Another one is like, do you think people are transmitting messages to you through microwave or through vents or things like that? And that's looking for like schizophrenia and hallucinations and things like that. But it's really worded strange. And a lot of people have the same reaction you do. They kind of chuckle a little bit. They're like, no, I've not done that. And I'm like, okay, well, let's continue these questions because, well, I have to, but also because it kind of helps weed things out. Sometimes they're not comfortable going into all of those questions, or the other talk has led us to a point in our limited amount of time, because again, bureaucratic BS, where I have to kind of stop in the middle and say, okay, we'll pick this up next time. And that's cool too. Most first responders have PTSD, and most first responders have experienced some level of suicidal thoughts. And I tell people, and this may come up later too, I tell people, if you tell me you're not that you've never had a suicidal thought, even a passive one, I don't believe it. Because there's a large portion of the population. It's like finding a unicorn for someone who hasn't had a passive thought. A passive thought is something as simple as, I'd be okay if I didn't wake up tomorrow. Or I wish I could disappear. Mm-hmm. Those are passive suicidal thoughts that nobody really recognizes. And that's an important thing to bring up, because those passive thoughts can become intrusive, and now they're becoming more active thoughts and more intentional thoughts. It's okay for somebody to say, yes, I've had suicidal thoughts. Yes. And then I'll ask them, well, what kind of suicidal thoughts? Are they, I wish I was not awake tomorrow, or I wish I could disappear? Or are we talking about, I've got a plan and, I'm thinking about doing it? And that kind of gets into the deeper stuff that we work through and deeper questions that I ask. But it's okay, and it's very important, regardless of who you see as a therapist, and regardless of who sees this. This is not just for first responders, this next statement. It is important that you tell your mental health professional if you even have a passive thought. They're not going to put you in the hospital. It's not our goal to put people in the hospital who are having passive thoughts. It's our goal to give you tools to help with those thoughts. And if we don't know that you're having them because you're lying about it, or you're not being completely transparent, then we're not giving you the right tools, and we're not being effective at our jobs. So please tell us. There's no judgment.
Now, talking about getting deeper into questions about like living situations, relationships, trauma, and as you mentioned, suicidal thoughts, how do you help first responders talk about those topics without them shutting down?
So, and that kind of goes back to the introduction, right? In my introduction, I talk about my husband. I talk about my kids. I talk about, my living situation. Hey, I live on a farm. I have chickens and turkeys, and so you might hear chickens or turkeys or a dog barking or my cat in the background, especially for my virtual clients. I kind of give them my answers to those questions up front. So then when if they don't give me some of that information in the introduction, which they tend to do because I've given it to them, so then it's kind of like a reciprocal thing at that point, then I can go back and I can say, okay, so, you know, I know you talked about your daughter, but do you have any other kids? Are you married? Do you have a spouse? Whatever. Um, Me being upfront with that information helps them be okay to talk about it. Me explaining the call that I took that got me into mental health, because I do that as part of my introduction. Hey, you know, if you asked me 3 years ago what I was going to be doing, I was going to be driving a retired school bus around, picking up old people out of the way of hurricanes and boarding up their house, and helping people evacuate. That was my career goal 3 years ago. I'm sitting here today because this happened. So why are you sitting here today? And me sharing without giving too much trauma, me sharing my reasons helps them share theirs. Sometimes they do shut down, and it takes time, and that's okay too. Um, I meet people where they are with the information that they are able to give me, because forcing someone to open up or give me information that is sensitive or difficult for them, they're not going to come back next week.
Right.
They're not. So one of my biggest rules is meet them where they are. Be willing to take whatever information I can.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine how hard it is, especially with people shutting down, and you definitely have to give them a little breathing room to kind of open up and give them a safe space to be able to break themselves open to get a lot of that stuff that they've been holding in. I know the struggle. It is hard. It's hard to kind of open yourself up, especially with somebody you don't know. So I definitely understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just met me 30 minutes ago, and I'm asking you to dump all of your trauma right on top of me, and telling you
Right.
that it's okay, and that's hard for people, and we acknowledge that.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty awesome that you're able to kind of understand those things and give them that opportunity and that space. Because a lot of therapists probably don't understand that level of compassion because they haven't been there. Uh, what kind of therapy modality do you use, and what does it work especially well with for the first responder community?
So I use two modalities, and they go hand in hand. The first one I use is ACT, or acceptance and commitment therapy. ACT is quite a bit younger than other modalities. It's also more flexible. So most people know CBT and DBT, so cognitive and dialectical behavioral therapies. Those those are old therapies, and I mean, ACT is like something like 39 years old, right? So it's not young either, but it's
Right.
younger than CBT and DBT. The reason that it works is because of its flexibility. So I have like a general outline that I kind of go by, but if someone's not able to focus or take in the information because of the level of the thing that they're dealing with, I can adapt and move to their flow. So, one of the first things that we do is we talk about values. What things are important to you? important that you show in your everyday life? Is it accountability? Is it loyalty? What are those like guiding principles that you have? Some people come to me and they can't answer that question because they're so deep in their situation that they can't think about anything other than that situation. So the flexibility allows me to say, okay, we can't think about that. So let's talk about these things that cause you pain, going back to those 4 circles. What things, if we make a list of all of the things that cause you pain, let's talk about what's on that list. And that's another way to get them to open up about those tough topics without them shutting down. Just name those things. We don't need to talk about them. Just give them a name right now. And then we go through for 4 to 6 weeks talking about different topics within that. So we do the pain list, and I use a lot of metaphors like the fire truck that I used earlier. We do a lot of those things because ACT says that the human brain thinks in images and videos. So if I ask you to think about your favorite car, you get a picture of that. It doesn't say Corvette flashing in your mind. It's you get a picture of an apple red Corvette, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so operating off of that theory and teaching first responders that they can change the way that they think about something by changing the way that they literally picture it. We are all image-based creatures, and so that tends to work really well for first responders. The other thing that I use is called internal family systems. That is not what it sounds like, and this is exactly what I tell people. It is not what it sounds like. It's not family therapy. Internal family system says, just like the rest of our body, we have we have the cardiovascular system, we have the respiratory system, etc. Our minds and our brains have multiple systems within them. And understanding those systems helps us be able to process our traumas. So I use those pretty hand in hand together. And I'm hoping to add brain spotting. I applied for a grant. I'm super excited. I applied for a grant to go to brain spotting class, which also is proven super effective and works really well with those 2 modalities. So we'll see.
So explain what brain spotting is.
So brain spotting is similar to EMDR. EMDR, you hold paddles and it goes left, right, left, right. The difference is that brain spotting doesn't require a verbal output by the client. So EMDR, you kind of have to talk through. Brain spotting, you can talk as much or as little as you want, going back to doing as much or as little as you want in therapy, cuss, fuss, vent, yell, scream, whatever it is. That helps maintain that level of openness, so they have the ability to go either way. Brain spotting uses a pointer and asks you to follow the pointer and do certain things in regards to that pointer, instead of like lights or taps or vibrating hand paddles. Easier to do on telehealth, a lot easier.
Okay. Now you ask clients to try it at least for 4 to 6 weeks before deciding if it's the right fit. What usually happens during that trial period?
So the 4 to 6 weeks trial period of ACT is where they're learning about themselves and how their brain works. So we talk, like I said, about um, values. We talk about goal setting. What's your big life goal, and what little things can we do to get you to that goal? And then we talk about diffusion. So we all know what fusion is, two things stuck together, inseparable. So diffusion is decoupling yourself from your thoughts, acknowledging that you're having a thought that you are anxious, not that you yourself are anxious. Again, back to the fire truck, you have the fire truck doesn't come with hoses and oxygen tanks and all that stuff that's put on the fire truck. You aren't born with anxiety, depression, people pleasing, whatever that's put on you as you go through life. So saying, I am the fire truck, not the hose is the fire truck, or I am feeling anxious, not I am anxious, because the thing that you're feeling or the thing that you have doesn't define you.
You're exactly right about that.
So that's that first 4 to 6 weeks is really just building that, ingraining that, and the light bulbs. Like I said, the first week or two, the light bulbs start to go off, but by 4 to 6 weeks, it's really clicking and hitting home. And we start to see a lot of positive changes that help them finish out another 4 to 6 weeks.
So generally, most of the clients after 4 to 6 weeks decide to stay and work through a lot of their issues after that.
Yeah. So usually after about 4 to 6 weeks, they've decided, okay, I get this. I understand what she's saying. This is working. And I trust her enough to finish out this part. And then we work into more of the internal family systems and the things that are going on with those thoughts inside their head. So very light on the different parts in the first 10 total weeks, and then we kind of really delve into the trauma after the first 10 weeks and really start to work. That first bit, though, is just adding tools to that toolbox, being sure that they're stable and able to go into the heavy stuff, because I don't want, as a clinician, to have somebody come in and start working on their trauma and then be like, oh, our hour and a half is up, see you next week, and then them go out and wreck their car because they were so upset or distracted with what we did in therapy that they're not able to bring themselves back to level.
Right. So that brings us to, what if it doesn't work? How do you help someone pivot without feeling like they failed?
The other thing I say on day one is, I want you to try this. I want you to try acceptance and commitment therapy with me. If it doesn't work, there are 1,000 other types of therapy that we can do. We are not limited to just this. This is just what I find works best. If you don't like this, you are not going to offend me. You're not going to bother me. You're not going to upset me. Just let's try it for 4 to 6 weeks. If it's not working for you, we'll back up and reevaluate. It's totally fine. I'm cool. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And that just kind of helps them like understand that therapy is like dating. Not only your therapist, finding the right therapist is like dating to find a wife, but even modalities themselves, finding the right type of therapy can be like dating. And sometimes you have to try different types of therapy to find the one that works for you. And it's completely okay. If your therapist tells you it's not okay, then that's not okay.
So you're intentional about keeping sessions times consistent, every Tuesday at 1 p.m., that kind of thing. Uh, why is that structure so important to our for first responders?
So that's important because first of all, it's easier. It's easier to remember, hey, my therapy's every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, than it is to try to remember. Oh, this week it's Tuesday at 1. Next week it's Friday at 3. Bouncing all around. Also, everything we do in therapy is about consistency. So even having it down to the time of when their therapy is, that consistency um, is built in because that's part. It's also part of their nature. Um, a fire department runs a structure fire call the same way every time. So having that set just helps. It's another thing that helps keep them feeling safe and secure in their sessions. Now, we understand that sometimes they can't keep their session every Tuesday at 1 because they might have to work an extra shift, or they might, not be able to get away from the firehouse or whatnot every time. And if that's the case, that's fine. We meet you where you're at, but the more consistent we can keep the time, the better the results are over the long term.
Right. Now, moving on from that, what does the overall therapy journey typically look like for your clients, and how long do they stay typically? And what does that progress look like over time?
Um, Therapy is an individual journey for each person. The minimum, the shortest therapy I've had somebody come in for has been about 8 weeks. Usually, those people who are on that short thing don't have a major trigger. They just have some kind of specific event. Maybe it's a spouse problem, a family member's terminal illness, something like that they need help working through. Other people who come in and they do have a traumatic event that they need to process um, can go anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks to 6 to 8 months or longer. We go at the person's pace. So I'm not going to push or rush them to get through certain parts. Um, as far as progress, what progress looks like, um, it varies person by person. But what I look for in looking for progression is, are you showing your values? So if you say that loyalty is a 10 out of 10, super important for you, are you showing that now? Were you showing it when you came in? No? Okay. Are we moving closer to you showing that now? Are you able to talk about the event without significant physical or emotional responses? And not, are you able to shut down and wall it off and talk about it, but are you able to get into the nitty gritty of it um, without some kind of major response? Some people I look for, are they able to follow through with their goals? Clients get homework from time to time in therapy. Are they able to complete their homework and follow through with their goals? Are they taking steps to lead that big life that they want? So, if a problem is that you have social anxiety and you don't want to go out and make friends, are you taking some sort of step to go out and make friends because you're lonely and you want friends? Are you taking those steps? I'm not looking for, are the steps successful? That's something different. I'm just looking at, are you trying? And, over time, somebody who graduates from therapy usually wants to help others. They want to, um, serve as a peer. They want to continue their job. They're not having anger outbursts anymore. We see some reduction in a number of their symptoms.
I think you are kind of touched on this before earlier on in the interview here. After sessions, you write something called a biopsychosocial. That's that treatment plan for insurance. Can you break down what that actually means for the client?
So what that means for the client is, uh, I write this kind of synopsis of what life was like before, how did we get here, what's life like now, what's the problem, why are you in therapy? And then I take that information along with all those yes no questions that we got our diagnosis from, and we combine that together into a treatment plan. The treatment plan and the biopsychosocial get submitted to insurance. So the treatment plan has the diagnosis, and what I'm going to do to help them. How is Emilee going to help this client? So I talk about, we're going to use acceptance and commitment therapy. We're going to I'm going to provide education around how the mind works and how things are processed. And then I'm going to provide this client with skills and knowledge on how to do things. And from there, the reason that we have to have that is for insurance to approve continuation of care. Insurance will not approve people to continue receiving therapy if they don't think that outpatient therapy is the right choice. So if I put on the treatment plan that this person at the time of their assessment thought that they were getting messages from outer space, and that they thought that they were being contacted through the vents in their home, or that they thought Clint Eastwood was calling their cell phone. Insurance, and I'm like, oh no, outpatient therapy is enough. Insurance is going to come back to me and say, okay, why is outpatient therapy enough for this person? You just said that they are this level of need. They probably need inpatient care, and insurance will make me, either rewrite my information or make me evaluate the person to go to inpatient care. Alternatively, 99.999% of my clients don't have those problems, just for clarification. So most of the time what that means is that I put down that they have PTSD, because like I said, 99% of first responders have it. They have PTSD and maybe anxiety or depression or an adjustment disorder, which basically means that you're having trouble adjusting to your current situation, and submit it. And then insurance says, okay, yep, you're good to see this person. They can see you this many times per year, or they can see you as much as they want to. We don't care, whatever that is. And that helps us determine the frequency of treatment. If somebody is only allowed 26 visits a year, but they need more than that, then I don't want to see them every week, because then I get to 6 months, they've hit their 26 weeks, and now they got to wait 6 more months to see me again. And that's not effective either. So it's all about being able to figure out how we can get your insurance to pay for your care and pay for all or most of it, aside from copays.
You know, I've never had Clint Eastwood call my cell phone, but I wish he would, because I'm like one of his biggest fans. I grew up watching Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. And these are
So,
all things that have actually happened, that people have called 911 and I have taken those calls. So back to the you can say anything and it's not going to faze me. People have called 911 with throwing their cell phone in the oven because Clint Eastwood called and wanted an Apple gift card. I've heard it. I've heard it all. So there's no amount of anything that can be said that's going to shake someone who has been a first responder and is now a therapist. Whether it's me, there are other first responders that have decided to go and become therapists. Whether it's me or one of them, you can't shake us. And that's the one thing that I keep telling people and first responders when they're seeking therapy, is to find someone that you can't shake. Because
right.
if you go to therapy and you tell your story and your therapist is crying at the end of the session, you're not going to want to go back to that therapist either.
Right.
So
Exactly. And wrapping up, what would you say to a first responder listening right now, who's been thinking about therapy but keeps talking themselves out of it?
Um, so I would say go. Go to therapy. It's not going to hurt you. Therapy is not designed to hurt you. It's not going to hurt you to go to therapy. The person that you go see is not going to be judgmental towards you, because we all recognize that there is a need for mental health support as first responders, and the brain can't continue to process these traumas without having some help. So, regardless of what all the old men say in the department, regardless of all the flack that you think you're going to get, tell them to kiss your ass and go to therapy, because you need to have a safe place to get rid of those thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I was one of those people that I couldn't trust therapists or counselors, and times have changed, things have changed, and it was hard for me to kind of trust therapists and stuff like that. So eventually that kind of broke down, and I was able to open up and feel safe and not be so guarded. So,
It's like dating. I said it earlier. It's like dating. You might have to go to 2 or 3, 4, 5, 10 therapists before you find somebody you can feel like that with.
right,
But when you find somebody that you feel safe with, that's when you're going to get the most work done.
absolutely. What's one thing you wish departments and leadership truly understood about mental health and public safety?
Um, the impacts, first of all, for telecommunicators, the impacts of what they hear, just because we don't see it, which that's also rapidly changing. 911 has gotten to where in some areas you can video call and video chat 911 and they can see in real time what's going on. But even without that technology, hearing something is just as traumatic as seeing it with your own two eyes. There's no amount of unhearing things that you can do. There's no amount of unhearing screams that I can't unhear screams. I can't unhear people begging me to help. I can't, as a dispatcher, I still can't stop having flashbacks and remembering all of these things and having nightmares. I'm a therapist with a therapist. I have a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I go to my own therapist. It's okay. But these departments need to understand that, one, the telecommunicators are just as affected as anybody else. And two, while I don't think mental health checkups should be mandatory, because I think that's kind of pushing a line we don't want to push. If somebody tells you that they need mental health support, whatever that looks like, you need to get it for them. You don't need to say, oh, here's our EAP, because your EAP is probably not a trained first responder. You need to find them the appropriate mental help and get them the appropriate contacts.
Yeah, a lot of times if you direct somebody to get mental health, they're not going to want to take it.
Mhm.
So if they really want help, they will seek out for help.
Yep.
And they will get the help they need.
They will. And there was someone in a Facebook group that reached out for help to get to an inpatient treatment, and they were having trouble obtaining airline tickets to get to that inpatient treatment. Um, I just happened to be online checking messages and saw it. And the thing about somebody asking for help is, if they're asking for it now, they need it now. It doesn't need to wait until tomorrow or until next week. You need to do it now. So I was online checking messages, and happened to see that pop up in a group. And I got a hold of that person. I got that person in contact with an admissions coordinator at a facility that I knew had funds to be able to cover airfare and anything else that they needed, through grants and support of churches and things like that. And that was at 7:30 one night. They checked into treatment by 10 o'clock that same night.
Oh, wow.
Help is out there, and you got to strike while the iron is hot. That's the moral of that story.
Get it now before it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, how can first responders in North Carolina reach out to you to get connected with you with TLC counseling?
So I have an email now that is specifically for first responders. That is resilient frontlines
Mhm.
at tlctherapy.com. They can also just go to tlctherapycenter.com. I apologize. They can also just go directly to our website, which is tlctherapycenter.com, and fill out the contact us. And the person who gets those emails will send it directly to me. And then last and finally, I do have a work-based cell phone number that they are welcome to text, and say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I need support for mental health help. And then I can set up a call with them and kind of get them started on the next step. And that phone number is 704-269-6068.
Okay.
And my request is just that they text first, because it's a second number on my phone, so I don't always answer it, especially numbers that aren't saved. So apparently the person who had the phone number before me rented bounce houses, and I still get a lot of calls for people wanting to rent bounce houses, which is great. I love it, but that's not the business I'm in. So I filter my calls pretty heavily. So text first, and then we'll set up a call.
Maybe you can incorporate some bounce houses into your therapy sessions. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I don't know that my liability insurance would like that very much.
Yeah, I imagine they probably wouldn't. Awesome. So Anybody who is in North Carolina can reach out to Emily, and she can get you the help you need. Now, keep in mind that hopefully here in the near future, sometime around 2027, they will make it, what was it, federally accessible for everybody to get help from
Um,
anywhere.
yeah, sort of. So each state is passing what they call an interstate compact. So any state that has that law signed in to place, you can get a multi-state license. There are 38 states right now, so we're almost there. I mean, just a handful of other states. Please encourage your social work boards to pass it because that's how you're going to get help.
Right? If you can't get help where you are, then you can at least reach out and get help somewhere else.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, that's pretty much all I have for you today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we get off of here, Emily?
That's it. Just be sure you're getting the help that you need. Don't wait.
Right. Exactly. Um, we definitely appreciate what you do, and we are thankful that you have made this turn in your journey and are helping first responders. It is an awesome thing, and definitely appreciate your service for what you do.
I appreciate it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely. We also thank you for coming on here and sharing with us once again the breakdown of what therapy sessions are like so that people can have a better understanding of what to expect. I know that all therapy sessions aren't the same. However, there is a common theme along with that. So, just so people know that they shouldn't be afraid to go into therapy if they're
Mhm.
struggling with mental health issues. And that's a pretty awesome thing. Um, Thank you for your time, and we thank you for coming back on here and giving us a rundown for that. We appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's been awesome. It definitely helped me kind of get a better understanding, also. So,
Everybody that understands is one more body that can help somebody else.
exactly. Uh, I'm not a licensed therapist or anything like that, but at least it kind of gives me a better understanding of how I can help people and how to direct them in the proper way.
Mhm. Yep.
It's pretty awesome. Uh, Once again, we thank you for your time. We appreciate you for coming on here. Um, Hopefully, we hear back from you again soon. And keep listening to 8158. If you haven't, you better start. You're busted. You haven't listened. Just teasing. All right.
I've been listening. I got you.
Okay. All righty. Have a wonderful day, Emily. And thank you for coming on.
Thanks.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
8158, everybody. We thank you for coming on. And I just would like to say that we appreciate all of our followers and those who continue to listen to the episodes. Um, we do have a lot more episodes that will be dropping. We have plenty of um, our uh, interviews coming out. So stay tuned, keep listening, um, and you might be surprised. We just might have a famous, semi-famous, very special guest. Um, he's been on a couple shows, and his interview will be coming up soon. And hopefully he comes on. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But in order for you to know and find out, you got to continue to listen. Stay tuned. Keep checking us out. Keep supporting 8158 podcast, Stories of Sacrifice. We thank you all for your support. We love you guys. We love our first responders. We love our military veterans. And just keep grinding at it, man. Keep coming to us. Reach out with our hotline. Check out our TikTok page. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Check us out there. If you need help, we're here to help you. And if you want to get on the podcast, if you're a first responder, if you're a family member of a first responder, or a family member of a veteran or somebody who is active duty, if you're an active duty military member or a veteran, you can hit us up if you want to get on here and clear the air. We love you. We thank you. Stay safe, everyone, and have a good night. 8158. Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.